Hey, I'm Jamie from Stonemeyer Games, and I do not usually dress like this, but this is a special occasion because I just spent the last weekend. This was April 29th through May 1st at the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser metagame experience in Orlando, Florida. And I am kind of overwhelmed by how amazing the whole experience is. I might get emotional during this video a little bit. And normally I talk about game design on this channel. If you're discovering this because you search for Starcruiser stuff, I'm a game designer, I'm a game publisher, and I usually talk about tabletop games. That's what I use this channel for. But this experience at the Starcruiser is essentially a giant game, and details I'll go into in the video here. So I'm going to talk about the game design a little bit of the Starcruiser and just talk about the overall experience, because as a publisher at Stonemeyer Games, I try to craft experiences that leave people with happy memories and bring joy to their tabletops. And that's exactly what I believe Disney is trying to do and has accomplished with the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser. So I have a bunch of different topics today to cover. I'm going to break this down into three sections. One will be non-spoiler. One will be Galaxy's Edge, which is the Star Wars portion that's open to the public in Disney World. I believe Hollywood Studios portion of Disney World, and which also isn't a spoiler. And then I have three little points at the end that are spoilers about the experience. If you don't plan to ever go on this experience, feel free to check out the spoilers. I think there's some cool details there, but most of this video is non-spoiler content in terms of like the plot line of what you'll experience at the Galactic Starcruiser. And again, I'll probably go into this in the video, but just to give you a rough idea of what I'm talking about, this is essentially a hotel that is crafted on the inside, and you stay almost entirely on the inside, except where they let you off, on Batuu, that's Galaxy's Edge. It's crafted to look like a starship. So you really feel like, or the intention, and this is how I felt, was to make people feel like they are really on an intergalactic cruise for a few days. So it's kind of like a cruise ship on the ocean here in the real world, but in outer space. And everything is crafted from start to finish to make you feel that way. Think about that and combine it with Westworld, if you're familiar with Westworld. And that's where all the gamification comes in. You walk into essentially this open world with little plot lines that you can follow if you want to, and you experience this game and play this big metagame over the course of 2 days, which doesn't seem like a lot of time, but they packed a lot of activities into these 2 days. It felt much longer than that. So I'll start from the beginning. The first point I want to talk about is how to prepare for the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser, which maybe I should just call the Halcyon, which I think is what they call the ship. How to prepare for it if you go. So I got together a group of friends to do this with me, and I kind of found friends that I thought would really enjoy it and would also just be fun to have along for the ride. I'm a little bit more of an introvert. When I go to conventions, and I don't go to many conventions, I usually sit down at a table and play games with people who come up to me and want to play games with me. But this experience of being put into a giant game with 150 other people or more and experiencing that game with them is a little bit out of my comfort zone. And so I found other people that I thought would, again, really enjoy it and would have fun just diving deep into it. They would say yes to this experience. And they did. I'm so lucky to have some incredible friends that joined me for this. And Megan, of course, joined me as well. And in case you're watching this series for the first time, my channel for the first time, I don't have kids. I'm just an adult who loves Star Wars. And when I found out that Disney was making this full-on immersive experience, I've been wanting to do it ever since they announced it. I think it's only existed for about a year now. And I do, before I forget and go too deep into this video, I want to say that if you know anyone else who happened to be on the Galactic Starcruiser this past weekend, April 29th, 30th, and May 1st, please refer them to this video because I would love to hear their thoughts about what we experienced together. I think one of my only regrets about the weekend is that I didn't talk, not that I was fully in character, but I was playing the game the whole time. I did not connect with many people outside of my group on a personal level, and I wish I had done a little bit more of that because I would have loved to know. Like I was in a room filled with nerds, Star Wars nerds who were saying yes to this experience. And I wish I had talked a little bit more with people about like what brought them there, and I don't know, not full conversations, just a little bit of those connections. Instead, I do feel connected to all these people that I joined with for this weekend, but I would love to hear from you if you were there or if you have done this in the past. But specifically, I mean, it would really tickle me if anyone who happened to be there at the same time that we were there comments here and shares their experience. I would love to hear from you. There are lots of individual people that I really, really wish I had connected with some people, but I was so swept up in everything that was happening that I didn't feel like I had much time to do that. Anyway, back to preparation. We got this group together to go on this trip, and we got costumes. That's what I'm wearing now. So I had a few different costumes. I had some t-shirts, not this t-shirt, but some t-shirts that kind of look like Star Wars touristy t-shirts. And I got this robe to feel more formal, maybe at night. I wasn't sure exactly when I would wear it. And in hindsight, what I would say is I wish I had picked one costume, kind of like this, but probably a little bit more stuff going on, and stuck with it for the entire weekend. Because, and I'll talk about this a little bit more with the cast, but choosing kind of a character for yourself or just being yourself in a specific costume, I think that level of consistency really helps across the weekend, because all the cast members, they might have multiple costume changes, but they're each playing a specific character for the entire weekend. So to be a part of that, I think for the full immersion, you also want to be consistently the same character for the entire weekend as well. So I wish we had done that, but many of my friends kind of did that. Like they had two big costumes, and they ended up just wearing one because they were fully immersed in that character on day one and wanted it to carry over to day two rather than switching costumes. We did also watch some movies and Star Wars shows in advance. Of course, I've seen all the Star Wars movies and all the Star Wars shows, except for the animated ones. I haven't watched those yet. But Megan and I actually watched the wrong shows. I think I watched the wrong video or something recommending the shows. We watched the first episodes one through 3. Then we watched Rogue One, which is amazing. I'm glad we watched that. But we should have jumped in around episode 8. Maybe watched 8 and 9, maybe 7, 8, 9. That's the time period that this plot takes place in. So that we should have done that. So if you want to prepare, get a single great costume and watch episodes 7, 8, 9. I think that's a good time period to watch. Point number 2. I don't want this video to take forever, even though I'm brimming with enthusiasm about what happened. Number 2 is the onboarding and offloading experience, which I thought was excellent. So it really started from when I first called to make the reservation. That was part of the experience really began then. But when you arrive at the Starcruiser, you are greeted by people who are already in character, but kind of soft characters at that point. They're easing you into the experience by not going too deep into it. But everyone running the cruise is part of the cast. They call themselves cast members, and they're in character, but their character is that they are running a cruise ship. Most of them are running a cruise ship, and so they are acting as you would expect someone in kind of hospitality to welcome you onto a cruise ship, which helps make the experience really easy. And then you get onto this little tram, or it feels like a tram, that will take you to outer space. It's actually just a really neat, nice, well-designed elevator that takes you into the hotel. I'm still actually not entirely sure if we went up into the hotel or down. I think we went down. But while you're in this thing, you're looking at screens that show you outer space. Like it makes it feel like you are going up into outer space, very briefly and without the G-force. But you kind of see an image, a video of you going and docking with the Starcruiser. So they're slowly like kind of onboarding you onto this experience. Obviously I won't go into every little detail here, but I really like that they took you out of reality and pulled you into this world right away, but also not too fast, not too jarring. And also later on I'll talk about Galaxy's Edge. Batuu is the planet that you're going to get dropped off on. And when you go there, you get onto a shuttle that takes you down onto Batuu. So you never break the experience the entire time that you're at the Starcruiser. Also, one little thing that I thought was really clever is that they are constantly training you for things that might happen later. The things that happen later are spoilers. I won't talk about them here. But training type things that they have you do are like there's lightsaber training. There's a big game table for sabak or sabak. I always mispronounce it, but there's a Star Wars card game. There's a digital version of that in the main bar that you can play in preparation for the sabak tournament that happens later. And then there's bridge training, so you get to go onto the bridge and push all these buttons and play all these mini games on the bridge for things that you might do later. So every one of these little rooms there are ways to learn how to do it before you have like a dramatic moment in the plot where you might need to be called upon to actually use that equipment, which I thought was so clever. This is just a great game design in terms of onboarding people into the experience. That's number 2. Number 3, I wasn't exactly sure where to talk about this in the video, but I did want to talk about pricing and the rooms themselves. So when you enter the hotel, you are first taken to your room, and the rooms are incredible. Quick aside, a long time ago, I wanted to stay. One of my kind of bucket list goals was to stay in a castle hotel. I love castles. I love medieval stuff, and so I wanted to stay in a castle hotel. Went halfway across the world to Ireland to stay in a castle hotel. Beautiful castle on the outside. On the inside, though, it just felt like a regular hotel room. Fortunately, there were other parts of the castle that didn't feel like that I hung out in quite a bit. However, for the Galactic Starcruiser, everything on the inside, from start to finish, feels like it was custom built, and probably was custom built for the Starcruiser. It feels like you were on a Starcruiser, from the bridge to the main atrium to your rooms, which are incredible. It was incredible. We had a big suite. I had 6 people in my room, and so we had a living room, a common living room. We had there was a bedroom with a big enough bed for 2 people, a couple, and then there were 2 bunk beds and a fold-down bed in there, and there was a fold-down bed in the living room, and there was another room with a big bed for 2 people. So in total, this place could sleep, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, could sleep 8 people for this room that was impeccably designed and really felt like we were on a starship, complete with multiple windows that looked out into outer space and had different things happening on those windows all the time. I think the way to go is to either get, if they'll let you, 7 or 8 people in that suite, or get a room for 4 to 5 people. I think it's 4 adults. They might let you have a 5th adult in this room. Crowd people into the rooms. I was a little worried about crowding people in too much. Don't worry about that. Even as awesome as the rooms are, and you are going to sleep there and spend some time there, you won't spend that much time there. They're part of the immersion, but I would pack people in there if you could. Get as many people as you can, because that way you're kind of paying less per person. So on average, I think if you get a room for 4 people, it's going to be around $6,000, which is a lot of money for a weekend, right? A lot of money. However, I think it's a really special experience. I think it's something worth saving up for and doing. And if you pack enough people into that room, the cost per person goes down. Although effectively you are charged per person in the end. So I don't think there are that many savings per person, unless you are only bringing 2 people, and then you're paying quite a bit for 2 people. So I think you want to get ideally 4 or 5 people to do it with you. Or in total, 4 or 5 people. Number 4 is the aesthetic, the set design. I've talked about this a little bit with the rooms and the atrium, but just every single element of the ship feels like in an intergalactic cruise ship. Like even there's a gift shop on the ship, but even the gift shop is designed to feel like a gift shop on a Starcruiser cruise ship, which I thought was a brilliant touch. Like they really make it feel like an intergalactic cruise. There's some photos that you can hopefully see on the screen to see what I'm talking about. But the little details from floor to ceiling, everywhere, everything felt like we were on a Starcruiser. It was incredible, the set design. Absolutely incredible. And one little touch, actually two little touches that I really enjoyed, is a few months ago I wrote a blog post about how in futuristic movies, every door is the type of door that's built into the wall that just slides from side to side, not the doors like we have in our homes that are on a hinge. And in the Starcruiser, I think almost every single door is the sliding in the wall doors, which is an incredible feat. Like that's an expensive way to build doors into a room, and they did it with every single room. Like the bathroom doors, the bedroom doors, the doors to the suites have those types of rooms. Every room in the whole place has those sliding doors that go into the walls. French doors, is that what they're called? Or, it'd be a different type of door. But yeah, those sliding doors, incredible. I love that little detail. That took a lot of effort for them to actually do. And the screen syncing. So I mentioned that there's some there's screens. They're windows, but they're video screens in the bedroom and in the suite. And all of the screens in the entire hotel, as far as I can tell, are synced to what's actually happening. And so if like you go into hyperspace, if you use the hyperdrive, or someone on the bridge uses the hyperdrive, all of the windows in the entire hotel at that moment show, this classic Star Wars hyperdrive look. And the same with other things that can happen outside that I won't spoil. Those are all synced with all of the windows, so you're all still experiencing the same thing together. That is incredible. Just a little touch, but that took a lot of effort that I think is incredible. Number 5, I'm 15 minutes in. I haven't talked about much, so this is going to be a longer video. I'll try to tag this so you can jump around. But number 5 is how amazing the cast is. And so I mentioned that the cast is everyone who's there. So everyone who's helping you get into the hotel, everyone who's serving you, the servers, the waiters. And we had a wonderful server, Emma. Emma was incredible. She was just so much fun and playful with our group of 9. So thank you to Emma for being part of that. And Emma's in character too this entire time. Everyone's in character. But I need to highlight in particular the cast who is there to move the story forward. People like the captain on the ship and the cruise director and some other characters that you meet along the way. I don't want to say any names out loud accidentally, but they're just different kind of groups of people that end up on this ship. And each one has maybe one person that is the most representative of that group of people in terms of how they interact with people, interact with the guest. And these cast members are absolutely incredible. And I'll just say some names here, just in case any of them end up watching this, or if anyone knows them and wants to compliment them. I have left them compliments on Disney's app, which you can do. But Wraith, the person who played Wraith, Saja Kier was incredible. And someone else who I won't mention until later because this is more of a spoiler. So these are people that aren't really in the Star Wars universe. I mentioned Wraith and Saja Kier. I had never heard of them before. So they're characters for this specific experience. And the actors playing them, actor and actress, were just incredible. And not just incredible about staying in character and keeping the plot moving and doing all that, but also incredible at including people. Like, they would start a conversation with one person, and their body language and the way they're talking about it would bring more people in. And by the end of the conversation that started with one person, they would have 10 or 20 people in this group who all felt included. They learned names so fast. They knew my name. They knew people's names in my groups so quickly, and they were engaging us in character for the story. So they were helping us advance the story and advance our own stories along the way. It's hard to describe how truly amazing they were at being a part of this whole experience and making the experience special and personalized for each of us. Also, I'll talk about kids versus adults a little bit later, but there were mostly adults on the Starcruiser. But there definitely were some kids there too, maybe 20 kids in total, ranging from really younger kids to teens. Not all the teens engaged all that much, but some of them were all in, and definitely some of the younger kids, there were things they couldn't quite do if they couldn't read yet, but there were other things that they could do, and the staff was so good with these kids. They would find ways to pull the kids into the right moment, and I'll mention one really cute moment, which was this little kid, really cute little kid. One of the characters, Wraith, was talking to our group. He had just stopped by our group. He was talking to us about a little mission that he wanted us to help out with. And this little kid, and this whole time, I haven't gotten to the app yet, but there's this app that's kind of cueing you to do different things. You're getting text from Wraith, even though it isn't actually Wraith. It's a program telling you different things from Wraith. But this little kid runs up to Wraith and says, "Wraith, I've been getting so many messages from you. Can we talk about it?" And of course, Wraith breaks off from our group to go talk to the kid. And of course, us being adults, we're all in on this experience, but of course we're not gonna we want Wraith to go with the kid at that moment. But this is where I'm getting a little emotional because it was so incredible. Yeah, it was incredible. Also, one final thing about the cast. Them being so immersed in it and being so good at including people and also being in character really made people, or at least made me buy into the whole experience even more. I knew that I opted into it when I signed up for this thing. I knew I was all in, but they made it even easier to just say yes to the experience. And from the aesthetic to the cast, everything is helping you say, yes, I'm on a Starcruiser. I'm involved in this important plot, this little movie that we're forming here. I'm in on this. And the cast did an incredible job of doing so. Uh, Costumes. I talked about earlier how I recommend getting one costume for the whole weekend. And I think this helps with the experience a little bit because even though you don't have to be a character, and really, I am not someone who ever dresses up at conventions. It's highly unusual for me to get a costume. But I'm really glad that I had at least this costume, this light costume for the event. And I in hindsight, if I did it again, knowing what the different kind of factions are that end up at the ship, and I can talk about that in the comments maybe if we want to, or I'll talk about it at the end in the spoiler section. Knowing what they are in advance, I think would really help because I had a few friends that ended up dressing aligned with some of those factions, and they really ended up engaging with those factions in really cool ways. And just for sake of example, we're on a cruise ship. Obviously, there's a plot going on. There's some good guys and bad guys happening. This is episode 789. The First Order shows up, of course. And one of my friends happened to dress up in the First Order costume. And so throughout many of the events, there were times where we were trying to hide things from the First Order. And there were real cast members representing the First Order, but there were also a few people that just had these costumes, these First Order costumes. And so it became just as important for the good guys to hide these things from other guests who were dressed up in the First Order costumes, as it was for us to hide those things from the actual cast members who were in those costumes. We were all a part of this game, even though some of us knew what was going on and some of us didn't. So I thought that was incredible. Fellow guests, I thought that the guests, the people who opted into this experience, most of them seemed all in for it. And those who weren't in for it, I never found that anyone really got in the way. Like they were just there's some people who were there either maybe for their kids or a kid because they were there on vacation. Their parents were more into it than they were. There were a few people who obviously weren't as deep into it as other people, and that was okay. And I think that both those people and the cast did a great job of not breaking the immersion for the rest of us who were pretending that we were in Star Wars world for a couple days. Those are my thoughts on the costumes. Food and so the food. The food was incredible. The food was really, really good, and not just tasted good, but also aesthetically was beautifully created. They made these dishes look otherworldly and yet also recognizable enough that we wanted to eat all of them. And they were served. I thought this was clever. They were served mostly cafeteria style, except for the dinners which were served to us. But all of the serving sizes were reasonable. They were small. And I, as someone who doesn't like to waste food, I really appreciated that because I wanted to try everything that I could fit in my stomach, and that was pescatarian. But and it was actually very accessible for pescatarians and vegetarians. But I wanted to try everything, but I didn't want to eat too much. I ended up eating quite a bit. But I really like that the sample sizes or the serving sizes were very small, because that way, if you really like something, you can just go back and get another serving. So the food was incredible, really, really incredible. And the drinks, we're adults. We had plenty of adult beverages, and they were good and tasty. They were well themed. Many of them looked beautiful and otherworldly. All of them did, really. But we also had the classic blue and green milk that Star Wars is known for. And you may have heard about this being at Galaxy's Edge. You can buy blue and green milk there. And what it is not a dairy product. It's kind of like a smoothie, an unhealthy smoothie. And the cool thing about the Galactic Starcruiser is that it's on tap there whenever you want it. Whenever the cafeteria is open, you can go fill up your cup at the cafeteria. So if you really like the blue or the green, you can fill up your cup as much as you want. I'm a green guy. I like the green version a little bit more in small doses. The food and drinks, and also the dinners, aside from the cafeteria style, there were appetizers out. There were snacks out all the time. And the dinners were elaborate and beautiful, and again, otherworldly. There were these blue shrimp that just looked incredible. The whole dining experience was really superb. Number 8, so I haven't even gotten to the story yet. Here's where I'm going to start getting into the story and all the activities that we're doing other than eating and drinking. So we each had this app on our phones. We had this phone, they were called data pads while we were there, but they were our phones with this app. And the app was prompting us so there was like a schedule of events, and you could look ahead and see like, okay, I need to go do the lightsaber training at this time. I need to go get bridge training at this time. So you had specific things that I think everyone had so that they could get that part of the experience. But there were also prompts that you would get from these characters that I mentioned earlier, where a character would show up on your app and tell you a plot point and say, hey, can you help out with this? Can you go down to this room and do this thing for me? And you could ignore it if you wanted, or you can answer it. Kind of had multiple choice, choose your own adventure. You could do that. And the more you answered and the more what you decided to participate in on the app and beyond, I'll go into this in the next few points, it really did create your own story. We were never diverging from the overall plot point of the entire ship. That was always going to be the same. That's the movie, the linear part of it. But the path that each of us took and how we got there and how we participated in building towards that core plot line was entirely up to us. And including there are activities on the second day that are dependent on choices that you made on the first day that not everyone gets to do. And so you really do get to form your own story and your own level of participation, which I thought was incredible how they're able to pull that off. It's a really, really well-designed app. As part of this, one thing that was a little separate from the app, but also ended up being tied to the story, is that they encouraged us upon arrival that whenever we saw people clustering around a cast member or anyone just clustering together in a little group, they encouraged us to join the cluster. And as I said earlier, the cast members are really good at pulling people in and engaging people, pulling them in. But a lot of it is up to you to just kind of drift over and see what's going on. And this is maybe one of the biggest surprises for me. And I'm not going to spoil anything specific, but just the idea that I could drift over to a group and immediately be a part of that group and be doing something that felt important to the overall story and to my story and to let me participate in the overall story was just incredible. Like, it wasn't an app prompting me to do something. It was me looking around this actual place and seeing what people were doing and just kind of drifting over and joining in. I did that so many times. I wish I'd done it even more, but it was so easy to participate that way. But it was ultimately still a choice. I was actively choosing to participate in those things. And so people who weren't as into it, or maybe were just a little tired, I was a little tired on the second day at one point, so I took like a long lunch. I definitely missed out on some things then, but so your level of participation at any given time is entirely up to you. The other level of this, so there's so many different levels of this, I still have two more levels to talk about, is that the more that you talk to specific characters, often when they're just wandering around looking for people to talk to, you get to hear secrets. You get to hear about secret missions. You get to they get to know you better, and they'll call you out to do things with them. And so Cass is actively watching for people who are participating with them on an individual or small group level, and they will highlight you if you do that. Not really highlight you, like put you in front of everyone in the room. They are the stars of the show for sure. The spotlight is never going to be on you, and that's, I think, a good thing, especially for introverts like me, or people who have stage fright. They won't do that, but they do learn your names, and they will involve you in these little secret missions. And I don't think I really had many of them. I had some small group, I had some group secret missions, but I didn't have many secret meetings or things like that. So I probably could have engaged with the cast a little bit more on a one-on-one basis. And the two more levels. So the final two levels are, there are a bunch of different rooms in the ship that you can just go play around in. Like, you don't have to be told to do this. Once you have access to that room, you can just go there and push buttons and play around and do stuff, like the engineering room, for example. So I like that they have all these other mini games that are set up for you to experience. Number 12 on my list here is the app also shows you all these optional things that you can do. And even these things build up to other activities that you might do. Like, one thing that didn't really intrigue me was that there were dance lessons at one point for a very specific song and a very specific dance for that song. I'm not a big dancer. I don't really enjoy dancing all that much, and so I didn't participate in that one. But even that one came back and helped out later, because when there was, during dinner, there was a brief show. I think maybe it was around 4 songs, and during one of those songs, they played the song for the dance. So everyone who had gone to the dance lesson, I kind of had a head start on participating in the dance. They also kind of taught people on the fly. But yeah, so many little optional activities that are listed on the app that you could choose from. And one of them was Sabak, or Sabak, however you say it. And this is the card game in the Star Wars universe. There was the table that could teach you how to play Sabak, and then there was a tournament that happened on the second day where you could just participate in the tournament. I immediately lost to a 10-year-old in the first round of the first game, and I was out of it. But I still had fun playing and still played a game for fun. It's a good, solid game. I have a video about it this past week, about the game itself. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. As someone who loves tabletop games, I was definitely going to participate in that, and had a lot of fun with it. So there are optional experiences like that, like the sabak and the dance lessons, things like that. That don't take long. None of these things are like hour-long activities. You're there for like 10, 15 minutes, and then you move on to the next thing. Okay, before I get into Galaxy's Edge, so at a certain point we land on Batuu and we do stuff at the Black Spire outpost. I'll talk about that in a second. That isn't inherent to the Starcruiser, but you through the app you were often told to like go on these side quests on Black Spire Outpost and to do things like all these core plot lines that you're participating in, all these core missions. They have things for you to do in Galaxy's Edge as well. So there's that side of it, and there's just the fun going to Galaxy's Edge and experiencing it. Before I get to that, the 13th point is about the capacity of the Starcruiser and what might change in the future. I believe we looked up the capacity, and I think it was around 500 people is how many people they can actually hold in terms of rooms and dining and the entire experience. And it's a lot of people. Maybe they've had that happen at peak weekends, but I think that would be too crowded. We probably had around 150, and I think it probably the optimal number of people, which you have no control over when you sign up for this, other than choosing a weekend during maybe the summer versus the school year, or holidays versus not holidays. I think the optimal is probably around 200, maybe 250 at most. I'm almost a little surprised that they designed it to hold that many people, because it would be really crowded. Like, it would be tough to get a table in the bar. When you're all in the atrium together, it would be a lot of people. 150 people maybe felt a little, just slightly light at times during meals in particular, when there are many, many tables that were empty because they had staggered meal times. I kind of wish that they maybe for when they had fewer people, that they would have fewer meal times so that you could feel like you're in a more crowded room together. But I understand, like Disney, I'm sure, has all this worked out, optimized for their staff and their cast. So it was not a problem to be there with only 150 people. It felt like a lot of people when we were there. What might change in the future, what I've heard, is that instead of having 3 cruises each week, they will probably decrease it to 2. I could even see them eventually going to 1 and then just having it be a hotel for people to stay in, like a nice hotel to stay in if you want to go to Galaxy's Edge on the off days. But I do really hope that this survives. Not that I think it's threatened to at a risk right now, but I can imagine Disney would rather have 500 people signing up every couple days rather than 150 people signing up. And I really hope Disney finds a way to help more people experience it, whether it's good, I don't know, discounts on the price from now and then, or whatever they have to do to get people into this place and have it thrive. If they do, maybe sometimes use it as a hotel for some people to fund, or not to fund, but to ensure that when they do have a Galactic Starcruiser weekend, that it feels really special. But it really is, hopefully you can tell, a truly incredible experience, like absolutely incredible experience that I think is a can't miss experience for a Star Wars lover or someone who likes these types of meta games. It's really special, and I want it to work out, and I want you to experience it if it's something that sounds appealing to you. But so that's what might change in the future. Let's go to Galaxy's Edge. Let's go to Batuu. So you land in Batuu, and you can go to Batuu as long as you want. In terms of actual location, it's a maybe a 2-minute drive, and you're immersed the whole time. You are in a vessel that is clearly kind of a small bus, but from the inside, you feel like you're in a vessel landing on a planet and going to Batuu. And the odd thing, so Batuu is incredible. It's an incredibly well-designed place to make you feel like you are on an otherworldly outpost. Where there are life-size, I think that one of the biggest things there are the life-size ships that you get to see, like the actual Millennium Falcon. You get to see how big it is. You get to stand next to it because it's there, full scale. That's incredible. Uh, and we had quests to do. We had like things to do while we were there. We were very busy running around scanning things and looking for things. And I found that I was almost looking at my phone too much. And so after an hour of running around and doing things and engaging with my data pad with Batuu, I put the phone away because I was like, I just want, this is an incredible place that they created. I just want to walk around and experience it for a little bit. And that was definitely the right call. I'm glad I did that. There are also 2 rides there. And one of them was incredible. So there was Smuggler's Run. That's where you get in the Millennium Falcon or something that feels like you're in the cockpit and you're pushing buttons and doing things and feeling like you're kind of flying it, but you're also mostly just feeling like you're flying it. And it was very well done, but because we had also done something similar in the Starcruiser, it didn't necessarily feel imperative that we do it. But we did. If you do the Starcruiser, you get 1 free lightning pass for each of the rides. So you might as well do it. You're going to get through it very quickly. And it is a really cool ride. But you also have the amazing bridge experience on the Starcruiser. The other ride, the Rise of the Resistance, I believe it's called, is incredible. Really, really incredible ride where neither are roller coasters. Both are, in Smuggler's Run, you're in a cockpit and the cockpit's kind of shaking around. In Rise of the Resistance, you were walking through a Starcruiser, or what is it called? An Imperial starship, and you walk through it for a little bit and get to be in this like giant room with a real size TIE fighter and a ton of stormtroopers, and then you get on the ride itself, and you just kind of sit in this kind of convertible that takes you around while things are happening. I won't spoil those things, but they look incredible, and there's elevation changes, and there's one quick jarring drop, but it's for someone who doesn't love roller coasters, it was still fine for me. I guess, yeah, I don't want to spoil it. You can watch a video about it if you want to see what it's like. Maybe even watch a whole video of the entire experience. But there are some really cool special effects and just all the life-size things that make you feel like you're really there in Star Wars next to some of the machines that you see in the movies. Was pretty cool. Really cool. We made lightsabers. Yeah, I've been wanting to show this. On my desk here, I have my lightsaber. So you can go to Savi's workshop and make your own lightsaber. And this is maybe one of the first few things I heard about Galaxy's Edge, that you go make a lightsaber. And you can't tell, but this is heavy. This is real metal, and it is quite heavy. And I'll light it up here. It's a pretty cool toy. I am not a toy collector. I have all my tabletop games, of course, my board games, but I don't collect like miniatures or toys like that or anything like that. But having built this makes it special to me. It's one of the few pieces of memorabilia that I picked up over this weekend. But I'm glad I have something tangible to remember, and I'm really glad that we all together made these lightsabers. It was part of the shared experience of going on the Starcruiser. It is cost extra. Like you have to pay specifically to do this in Galaxy's Edge, but they make it pretty special. You can watch a video of people making it, but it definitely feels different when you're there and you're selecting the parts and when you're lifting up the lightsaber for the first time. All of that feels really cool. So I liked doing that. The other experience that we reserved at Galaxy's Edge was Oga's Cantina. So we made a reservation for Oga's Cantina. And here's a little word to the wise. Something that I've learned about reservations at Oga's Cantina. The reservation is just when you show up and see if they have room for you then, even though it's a reservation. So we showed up at our reservation time and they said, okay, we'll send you a text when we can let you in. Which is a little odd because there's also a time limit as to how long you're allowed to stay in Oga's Cantina. It's 45 minutes. But anyway, we wandered around. There's plenty of other stuff to do. And so we came back and we got into this cantina. And because there were 9 of us and there are 9 drinks at Oga's Cantina, we ordered one of each and just went around and sampled all the drinks, which is kind of a fun way to do it. And none of them are very strong. They're mostly just juice with a tiny little bit of alcohol. So ordering 9 drinks for even 5 people would probably be fine, and you get to taste them all. They're tasty, fruity beverages. They were fun to drink. And the atmosphere at Oga's Cantina is pretty cool, too. There are people in there. There's, as always, all the set design is incredible. And even at this part, actually, yeah, even at certain other times, I talk about secrets that are kind of handed to you. There's even like secret stuff that you can do at Oga's Cantina that your server is a part of, and they can see that you are part of the Starcruiser because you have, actually, I forget which of these badges represents. Yeah, it's the Halcyon. So this is the badge that you have. One of these says that you are part of the Starcruiser. I can't remember actually where I got the other one. Maybe one was for the lightsaber training. I don't know. You got one of these badges when you landed on Batuu, and that way they knew that you were on the Halcyon, and they knew they could say certain things to you, and they would mean something to you in particular. Other than that, a lot of Galaxy's Edge is just kind of like walking around, and they have gift shops. Obviously, they have food, and we went to Rondo's Roasters, I think it's called. They had a decent vegetarian option. And they had some drinks there. You can also make your own droid. That was one thing that we didn't do, but it was really neat to see people walk around with their droids and use there was a place where you could test out the droid that you just made. That was really cool. And okay, now I'm going to kind of go back up to a meta approach. This doesn't entirely belong in this section for Galaxy's Edge, but here's where I put it. In fact, I'll save this to the end. I'll move this one to the end and come back to it in a non-spoiler section. So let's go to spoilers. So spoilers, I meant to make a sign that said spoilers, but we'll put it on the screen here so you can see it. 3 spoiler things. The first is, while you're on the Starcruiser, Chewbacca shows up, which is awesome, and you get to like walk around and try to hide Chewbacca. And it's just kind of silly fun. Like you're trying to hide Chewbacca from the First Order, who is also aboard of the ship. And it's cool to see Chewbacca, and it was fun to try to move him around with all the other guests. And also, there was a droid on the ship, an SK droid. It was kind of like R2-D2, but a different model. And having the droid controls were incredible. Whoever was steering the droid, we never quite figured it out. We figured it was someone on a camera steering it. They did a wonderful job of making him come to life and to interact with us throughout the room. And seeing the kids in particular interact with the SK unit was adorable because there was really no way for them to tell that this wasn't a machine that was genuinely interacting with them. Real little kids couldn't tell that. Again, I'll try not to get emotional here because I was surprised by how emotional I got when this happened. But yeah, see, I'm getting emotional already thinking about it. Yeah, it's so silly. Oh, that's the wonderful thing about this weekend. It's all silliness. Like we're all adults dressing up, playing Star Wars. But we're all doing it. We all said yes to this weekend. Like when you sit down and play a board game and you say yes to the board game. I won't linger on this because I will get emotional. But Rey comes to the ship and it's magical. It's so cool when she comes. And there's a big climactic battle and things that happen with Rey. They build, I mean, it's like they told a little movie here. It's like a little novella in the Star Wars series that you get to participate in. And the climax is really cool. And everyone's there in the room while it's happening. So there are some bigger scenes like that, and so some of the things I didn't mention earlier, there's some big scenes that are unique to you. So for example, for me, I was trying to help the captain, and so I had the bridge training like everybody else, but there was also a time where I had to go to the bridge and fight TIE fighters essentially. And there's this giant screen, like the size of a movie screen, that we are controlling stuff on this screen. That's kind of showing what's outside of the ship in outer space, these TIE fighters in this case. There's also the lightsaber training. I had this path that I was on with the Sajas, which were the people who train with lightsabers and the Force, things like that. They can't control the Force, but they believe in it. And there's a incredible moment with an ancient artifact that happens if you go down that path, and that's the one that I experienced. But there were some other big special things that happen depending on your path that other people experienced that I did not at this point. All right, let's go back to a final non-spoiler thing. So who is this for? Like, who is the Starcruiser for? I wanted to address this so you can wonder if it might be for you. Obviously, I mentioned the budget earlier. I've talked about saying yes to the experience. I think that's all part of it. But most importantly, I wanted to highlight how accessible Disney made it. They both in terms of how great of a job the cast does at including people, but also wheelchair accessibility. And accessible for different ages, little kids, teenagers, grown-ups, older people, all different ages. There's a way for them to interact with this on their level, and also their understanding of Star Wars. One of the first questions we were asked when we got there was, who's here because you love Star Wars? And then they asked, who's here because you love someone who loves Star Wars? What a great question to ask. Like, what a great thing to say, to welcome people in and be like, hey, like, we're here for you too. It's okay if you aren't as into Star Wars as your significant other or your mother, your son, you know, we're here for you too. So I think it's for a lot of people, potentially for a lot of people. It really, the accessibility was incredible. I do like that it was mostly adults, but I didn't mind having some kids there. Like, the kids did not ruin the experience for me at all. In some ways, they really made the experience special to see through their eyes what it's like to meet Chewbacca, or a droid that you actually think is a droid or Chewbacca. That was really neat to witness. And obviously there were some I don't know, socially awkward people. There were a few socially awkward kids and a few socially awkward adults, and the cast were very, very adept at making them feel included, but also not ensuring that the way they were engaging with the experience wasn't hurting the experience for anyone else, which I thought was amazing. One little thing, so actually two things. The only two changes that I suggested in my feedback to Disney, and they were very small things, but one was when I walked into the atrium, when I first got there, the atrium is big and grand. There's the bridge. Again, the set design is amazing. So I was looking around at everything, and I immediately walked directly into a very low bench, because in the atrium there are some long, very low benches. They're low, I'm guessing, so that kids can sit on them easily. The adults can also sit on them, but they're kind of just floating out in the open of the atrium, and I was embarrassed. My shin is bruised from it. That I can get over. I'm totally fine with that. But I saw other people trip over them too. Someone else around my age tripped over them, and really went sprawling out. And so I am a little surprised they're out there, because I think someone could really get hurt on them. And so keep an eye on that. I'm guessing Disney's not going to move them, but they are there. Watch out for the low benches in the atrium, please. And the other thing that wasn't really for me was there was some. I mentioned the dancing earlier. It's okay that dancing isn't for me. And I get that it's a cruise ship thing in general to have a performance, to have a singing performance, which there was. And I understand that they've built it into the plot line for the Starcruiser. I understand it. It was just the one thing that kind of took me out of the experience a little bit. I didn't really. I wanted to hang out and talk and engage with the story and my friends. And so I wasn't there for a song performance, especially one where I didn't know any of the songs, because they're, made up Star Wars songs. So that was maybe the one thing that didn't feel up my alley, and that was a little hard to avoid, because there were certain times where everyone was just together and there happened to be someone singing at us during those times. So that was maybe the one thing that made me disengage a little bit from the experience. Yeah, but overall, if you can't tell, I am in awe of the experience. I'm involved in awe of the game design for the experience, because it took a lot of Disney Imagineers to come up with the app and the sets and the cast and the story and the plot lines and how you can participate in the plot lines. All the stuff that I just described took a ton of work to put together. And my hope someday, it's probably just a one-off experience for me, but my hope someday is that they do another storyline. I don't think they need to change the set all that much. They might need to change a few of the rooms or add a few extra rooms. I think they probably have the capacity to do that. But to have a completely different plot line, maybe at a different, instead of doing episode 7, 8, 9, do something for 4, 5, 6 maybe, or do something in the Mandalorian period, Mandalorian, like kind of Rogue One. I think they're around the same time. That would be really cool. No, Mandalorian's after episode 6. So anyway, pick one of those other time periods and do a new plot line for that. And that's the one time that I might actually consider going back, if they had a new plot line. So I hope they do that someday. But anyway, I recommend it. I had a wonderful time. Hopefully you got something out of this video that you can apply to your experience if you decide to go. I would love to hear your thoughts. Again, I would love to hear your thoughts if you have gone, if you're curious about going, happy to answer any questions, or if you were there at the same time that I was on April 29th and 30th and May 1st of 2023. I would love to hear what you thought. It was an honor for me to share that experience with you. And thank you to Board Game Gran. I'll include links in the comments below to these channels. Board Game Gran and Peter at Ordinary Adventures. Ordinary Adventures is a game, is a channel about going to Disney stuff for the most part and amusement park type things. But seeing these people talk about the experience that they had at the Starcruiser made me finally say, I want to get this off my bucket list and actually do it. And so I really appreciate them for doing that. Yeah. I'm so happy I got to do this. It's really odd actually to come back to real life after being on the Starcruiser. It feels less magical in some ways, even though the real world is magical in its own way. But yeah, it's good to be back, but I also miss it. And actually, before I go, I wanted to mention too that this is the one thing that you're allowed to take out of your hotel room, other than some of the food that they give you in the hotel room. This is, I believe, a mask case. We didn't actually open it, but it's a neat little case that has the Starcruiser logo on it. You're allowed to take this with you. And that's the main things that I have are the sabak, that an extra kyber crystal when I'm feeling red, and the actual lightsaber itself. Anyway, thanks for joining me for this long video. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments, and may the force be with you.